Welcome to the Lecture Center. I'm Marja, and this is the place where we feel comfortable and free to let our minds be at ease. This is indeed the Thinker's Zone, and it is where we philosophize on life, and not many people are doing that these days, and I think that's because most people just refuse to think. It's just like it's too much for their brain. I've often said that the majority of us are in survival mode, and when that's the case, it's always in crisis mode. That's 24/7, 365. And who really has the time to ponder? Who really wants to do that if they're in survival mode? And before we even get into all of that, friends, I just want to say, excuse me, I was feeling a bit under the weather, so my voice is not 100%. I'm going to do the best I can to get through this podcast. I had to talk about this. It was on my heart to talk about it. And I don't think I have to be perfect to do it. So, what was I saying? So people don't want to really think, because most of the time people are in survival mode. But then there are other people, weirdos, the selected few like you and I, who can't help but to look at the circumstances of life and ask the age-old yet simplest question, why? Now, why is a question of curiosity. That's what I always say. And curiosity is what stimulates the mind and gets the juices flowing. It's about asking questions, and I believe the questions have to be essential for the use of the mind and overall function of it. And, of course, if you're anything like me and you like to solve problems, then it would make perfect sense for you to be listening to this podcast. I think we should discuss a subject that has been largely overshadowed for the last 2 or perhaps 3 political campaign cycles, and it is what is so dear and so passionate to me, education. The most I've heard anyone say about education is the proposal for school choice. I talked about that in one of my YouTube videos, and I could say a lot more about that, but I won't now. They've also, I believe, talked about a change in the curricula regarding the abolishment of studies related to whiteness, which is a concept that has to do with the abolishment of white people or white studies from the humanities curricula. There have also been calls to replace these studies with the LGBTQ, Caribbean, Black, and gender studies, and this has already been done. I'm saying that there are calls. Friends, this has already been implemented in many states, cities, towns across the United States. And this raises many issues. But for some reason, these issues were not raised because parents, teachers, administrators, and politicians have not really been paying attention to it. And that's why it is in play. This agenda has been in the making for years, but it was a covert mission that took place little by little. The media introduced us all to this as a society, and then we accepted it for fear of being ostracized and even canceled. But before we go into that, I want to talk about the issues, and one issue has to do with the rights of the parents to have a say-so in what the state is teaching their child. I simply don't understand why there should even be a battle over this. If parents say, this is unacceptable, in other words, I don't want you telling my children what to think. I want you to teach them math. I want you to teach them reading. I want you to teach them history in its real context. I don't need gender studies. I don't need race studies. We don't need LGBTQ. So if parents say this is unacceptable, then that's what it is. Period. At what point did parents lose their right to parent? There's an answer to that question, friends. And I would have to go into a history lesson, and it has a lot to do with when they said parents could no longer chastise their own children. But again, that's another topic. But they actually did say that. And once that happened, basically all hell broke loose. The floodgates were opened. So parents stopped speaking up because they became afraid of the state, which strangely empowered children. Children have more rights than their own parents in the United States. Friends, the right to speak is a God-given right. If we fail to use our voice, we will lose every other right there is. We mustn't be afraid to speak, especially when it comes to the well-being of our children. This is very serious. We have generations that are confused about their own sexuality as a result of this sinister movement. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about sexuality and pedophilia, friends. Yes, that's what we're talking about today. Really, it's education and pedophilia. So, this so-called movement has nothing to do with educating and everything to do with grooming children for the sick, degenerative culture that is pedophilia. This, friends, is the most depraved of all. It is the reason for the drag queen story time. If you didn't know about that, check it out. It's real. I had no idea, except I was online and people kept posting it. It's so real. If you find anything, let me know, because they've managed to take down a lot of the footage because it wasn't well received. You think? But they don't give up. They know that the world is not yet ready to allow its children to have sexual escapades with sickos. But, however, they're hoping that grooming children, telling them it's okay to be whomever, whatever gender you feel like being, will allow them to be sexually free. Friends, I'm telling you, this is a movement that actually began with the feminist movement, in that it encourages women to abandon heteronormativity and bask in sexual promiscuity. The movement, which is ongoing, sends a terrible message to young girls and youth of all ages that a woman can do whatever a man can, meaning she can be a whore, she can walk around in the nude if she damn well chooses, and a man had better restrain his sexual desire. In other words, a man can look. She wants him to look, but he better dare not touch. What the hell is that? We expect men to look, but don't touch. You see, what they really want is attention. They want to be admired. They want to be a tease. They want men to desire them. Don't rape them. Just don't do it. Don't be tempted to do it. Friends, if only it were that simple. If a rapist could curb his desire for rape, he wouldn't do it. So, why not arouse him? Let us all walk around in the nude and arouse this depraved desire. I don't know why people argue over this. The feminist movement has proven to do more harm than good. It has destroyed what it means to be a woman. Lo and behold, the trans woman emerges. Women have failed. They have failed to properly define themselves as women. They have instead cheapened themselves by using their sexuality to assert a pseudo power. A woman's sexuality, nor a man's, is a power tool, especially if used to manipulate the sexes. Friends, streetwalkers, call girls, and strippers use their sexuality to dominate and control. Many of them admit it, and they admit that they like it. But this isn't all about sex workers, because the average woman would do this too, and they have done it. Many women use sex as a weapon. They use it to get what they want from men. They use it to manipulate men. They use it to control men. And what do I have to say about that? I feel that that is the lowest a woman can go. It cheapens women. And I don't define this as a characteristic of womanhood. But let's circle back. Every single sexual orientation or gender movement began with the feminist movement. It all started with the females. It was like the Pandora's box, because you see, women don't understand who they are. They don't know their role in society. Of course, they'll say it's a man's world, but it's a woman who leads a man, who nurtures a man. But these days, not many women are in a position to do it because they have no idea what womanhood is. They think it's sexual prowess. And this couldn't be evidenced more in the movie Poor Thing, starring Emma Stone. Friends, I don't know if you've ever seen that movie. I'll tell you, it was critically acclaimed. She won so many awards. However, I thought it was the most degrading movie I've ever seen. It was worse than Showgirls, Pretty Woman. Those movies they had a real message. This one, it had a message, all right. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. I felt terribly sorry for the men who were abused by a loveless mass of protoplasm that was in the appearance of a woman. The entire movie featured Emma Stone in compromising situations, putting her sexuality on display. She paraded herself about as some kind of goddess who men just desired sexually. She apparently was so sexually irresistible that she had one of her victims committed. She had sex with men, multiple men and women. And she loved every bit of it. She loved the fact that she could use her body to overpower men and women. Perhaps this has something to do with how and why this degenerative movement has taken shape and form. We know that rape is about power. S&M is about power. And so is pedophilia. All of these perverted forms of sex are all about enslavement and wielding power over the perceived powerless. So this is the message they want to put forth. This is the message that is being relayed to our children in school. It is that sex is not about love, but about domination and control, and that sexuality is something that has no meaning. It's for your pleasure, and other people are for your pleasure too. This, friends, is debauchery at its finest. What mother would think it's okay for her child to be introduced to sexually explicit content? Friends, there's no way that they are teaching about sexuality if not for a purpose. And that purpose is to groom your children, our children. What I also couldn't grasp is how so-called parents, particularly mothers, could stomach taking their children to a drag show. Oh my goodness, you have to see it. You have to see the videos of the parents who took their kids to a drag show that was labeled just for children. There were babies there, friends. Babies, toddlers. Those videos caused an uproar, and as a result, like I said, many were taken down. But I'm sure you can still find some out there in cyberland. What most people don't know is that they're telling children, teens, and young adults that whatever you feel like being or doing is sexually okay. What they're encouraging is far from restraint, but a willingness to participate in any and every sexual act, be it demoralizing and even deviant in nature. And there are no boundaries. As I said, it all began with the feminists. They told women it was okay to explore their sexuality, even if it proved harmful to their emotional and spiritual well-being. They did this under the guise of freedom. Freedom from the oppression of men. How about that? However, sex is not just some physical act. There are real consequences to having sex, especially reckless sex. But you see, what they asserted was that men had restricted women to subservient roles in the marriage. And they were forced to be chaste and conservative. Women were simply not allowed to be sexually expressive. But what kind of women are these? Or what kind of so-called woman wants to act like a wild animal? If a person, be it a woman or a man, does not learn how to curb their sexual appetite, it is because he is an animal. But nobody will tell this truth because we've been told that it's a lie. You see, a human being is a civil creature. A human does not behave in the manner of a dog. So the feminist movement has proven to be successful. They've gotten their point across, and today's women are wholeheartedly committed to upholding this debased culture. But at what cost? Where has it gotten us? I'll tell you where it's gotten us. Polyamory, trans, queer, non-binary, gender fluid, etc., etc. And we're on the cusp of fully tolerating a totally debased culture that includes pedophilia. This is happening because we're allowing the grooming process to be taught in schools. So I have something I want to share with you. It was a post that I found on X. I wish you could see it, but I'm going to just give you I'm going to read a little bit from it. It actually is, it's a course description for kindergartner. And it says, our gender curriculum focuses on core value of respect and aims to center discussions on gender identity. The students will learn and discuss that there is a lot you can't tell about a person by simply looking at them. The students will look at pictures of children and talk about what they notice and what they think they know about the children just from the pictures. Using their observations, we will then take the opportunity to introduce vocabulary to describe characters of different identities. Parentheses, cisgender, transgender, and non-binary, close parentheses, in a developmentally appropriate way. These are their objectives, friends. 1. Identity is who you are. 2. People express their identity in different ways. 3. Identity includes your gender and the pronouns that you use. 4. All people should be treated with respect since there is no right or wrong way to be any gender. 5. As we learn and grow, the words we use to describe our gender identity can grow too. 6. All kinds of people live in ... and bring value to our community. Vocabulary: cisgender, transgender, non-binary. Why won't you teach my baby to read? Oh my goodness. What about arithmetic? What about science? The evidence is right here. They want to groom not only children, but all of us for the introduction of a new group of people who love children, i.e. the pedophile. But they will not use that word. I really want to set the stage here because some of you may be saying, well, wait a minute, what does this have to do with pedophilia? Let me set the stage. I already have somewhat set it because I told you about the videos. That is grooming. If you're going to have drag queen story time with babies, that is grooming. If you accept what a drag queen is, if you think a drag queen is just purely entertainment, oh my goodness, you are lost. We must see through this agenda and understand that there's no reason to expose children to sexually explicit material. Parents have to be more involved in what their children are being exposed to in school. We used to be able to trust the system, trust the teachers, trust in the school system. We can't now. And so this is why parents in Vegas, Texas, and Florida exposed all of this at their local school board meetings, and many of those parents were censored. Some were even put on a terrorist watch list. Imagine that. This can also be found online, friends. You can find some of these school board meetings, and you can listen to what the parents were saying. They often read excerpts from sexually explicit books that were easily accessible to their children because they were either on their class reading lists or in the school library. You see, what you've been told on the other side of the aisle is that the books were being banned. Black studies books were being banned. Gender studies books were being banned. No. That's not the full story. First of all, no books were banned. When a book is banned, you can't get it anywhere. If you want your children to learn about Rosa Parks, which I'm sure they can in school, you can still get a book about Rosa Parks on Amazon. It's not banned. Wrong word. They were talking about the sexually explicit materials. That's what they were talking about. Now, I can't, for the love of God, wrap my mind around how any of this could be okay. Our children are struggling to read and write. Many in the urban areas and some rural areas of the country are illiterate. Yet teaching about the queer lifestyle takes precedence. Let us discuss the origin of this madness. And now, I'm not a history buff, but I think it would be helpful for you to know where this kind of beast comes from. Believe it or not, it all began as a philosophy in what is known as the post-modern age. And what we're talking about is the late 20th century. This subset of philosophy was centered on the rejection of the cultural, artistic, and overall societal norms that shaped the Western world. And those who subscribe to postmodernism do not accept truths that most of humanity has accepted since the beginning of time, such as, if you have XX chromosomes, you are a female. If you were born with XY chromosomes, that makes you a male. Postmodernists reject scientific study as an objective truth. They believe that the entirety of our society is socially constructed, and that it is their moral obligation to deconstruct it. That is why many of them say that race is a social, systemic racism. Race happens to be a social construct, but systemic racism is part of a social construct, and they feel it's their moral obligation to deconstruct it. Friends, that is what we're witnessing now in every facet of civilization. These people have abandoned reason, and in place of it have adopted nihilism, which is a term that was mentioned by the philosopher Nietzsche. You know what that word means because you know what it means to annihilate. What we're talking about is the abandonment of morals and rejection of life having any meaning at all. And this is where we are. So this postmodernist movement was initiated into the schools by the Brazilian teacher and philosopher Paulo Freire, who wrote Pedagogy of the Oppressed, which I read, and I won't say this is the absolute beginning, but I will say this is what solidified the madness. Freire was an admirer of Marx, and he was influenced by his philosophy, and that's why the overarching theme of the book was the need for those who were oppressed, the have-nots, to not, listen to this, be formally educated, but to be rebels of society, activists. Freire thought, what good was it for a child to be literate while being a political slave, subjected to the lower status in society? He thought what the child should do is learn to rally and protest the conditions of his life. That was first and foremost. Not reading, not writing, not arithmetic. Activism. It was this kind of mindset that paved the way for this culture of activism we see now. That's what we see with the college students. We saw it in the 60s. We're seeing it play out now. And what I find interesting about all of this is that all of these so-called postmodern philosophers who advocated for the dismantling of reason were all highly educated people. Friends, Freire was not oppressed in Brazil. When he was a boy, his family was not destitute. They suffered hardship and were among the impoverished, but Freire rose above his circumstances and went on to become a well-educated and highly respected man. But it's interesting because these are the people who lead these kind of movements. It is the intelligentsia, the so-called educated. They're the ones who lead men to hell. I can't think of any moment in time when this wasn't so. Lenin did it with the Bolsheviks and Castro with the Cubans. I want to say that education plays a huge role in disseminating information to the masses, and we typically blame the media for propaganda. But in this case, education, so-called education, was how all of this madness was introduced to our children. Our children are being politicized, groomed. Oh my goodness. They received it in college and now they're getting it at the elementary level. They want to desensitize the children so that they will be open to lewdness and also to be heavily politicized. There's a lot going on, and I didn't think I would get into the politics of it all, but I might as well. One door unlocks another, and so on and so forth. And we're allowing it. We're allowing this because we're uninformed. I can't tell you how many people have no idea what books their children are being assigned in school. Parents, you must ask to see your kid's syllabus. Ask the teacher to provide their reading list. I'm telling you, they're trying to teach your children things that are for their benefit, for the benefit of the state. And it's a destructive agenda. They want a world where they can live out their debased fantasies. They don't want law. They don't want order. They don't want civility. These people are anarchists. And that may sound extreme, and that's because it is. That's what we're dealing with. Oh my goodness, friends, this has been an eye-opening talk, and I want to talk about this more because there are so many places we can go. And this is the reality of it. We don't know what they're teaching our kids. They try to hide it. They really do. I've been made privy to a lot because of the type of work that I've done for many, many years. And I know a lot, and I haven't revealed it on this podcast, and maybe at some point I will. There have been some things that I've revealed, but there's even more. And friends, they keep secrets from you. If you have children in school, they keep a lot of secrets. They get children to talk to them, and children tell them secrets, and they don't tell parents. That's something that I know for a fact. This is dangerous. Children should not be encouraged to keep any secrets from their parents. Oh, I'm telling you, friends, I was in that world, and so I know a lot about it. I was in many different facets of education. So there's a lot over many years. So there's a lot more I have to say about that. Friends, I want to thank you for joining me. We will be back, and we will be here posting on Sunday. YouTube videos go up on Sunday. I look forward to you sending a message, leaving comments on the videos, and I look forward to the next podcast. Until next time.